Welcome and thank you for attending the ANA Security Group Workplace Violence Prevention Plan training. Workplace violence is among the top leading causes of workplace fatalities, and there are thousands of non-fatal violent on-the-job incidents each year. Workplace violence can occur at any business or workplace, and anyone can be a victim. Therefore, it's important for you to know how to prevent these incidents and what to do if you encounter a potentially violent situation at work. This session also covers our Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, how to report incidents, the workplace violence hazards of your job, and information about the violent incident log. At the completion of this module, the participant will be able to describe the 4 types of workplace violence, identify workplace violence risk factors, recall engineering and administrative controls, recognize the signs of potential violence, diffuse potentially violent situations safely, respond appropriately to a violent incident. You will need to know and understand the following topics to be able to respond appropriately in case of an emergency while on this site. We'll discuss how to react, who to contact, how you can help, how you should respond, and the procedures to follow during an emergency. If you have any questions at all during or after this training, please be sure to talk with your supervisor and review the detailed Workplace Violence Prevention Plan as necessary. California Senate Bill No. 553, or SB 553, and the California Labor Code Section 6401.9 require us to establish, implement, and maintain an effective workplace violence prevention plan. We have implemented a violence prevention plan that is specific to our workplace. Employees were involved in creating and implementing the plan. You'll receive this training annually. Initial hazard evaluation and inspections were completed when the plan was first created. Inspections will also take place after each incident of workplace violence and whenever we are made aware of a new hazard. We will conduct ongoing workplace violence hazard inspections. In addition to investigating workplace violence incidents, we will maintain an incident log along with other record-keeping requirements. ANA Security Group is concerned about and committed to our employees' safety and health. We have a zero tolerance for violence in the workplace. We will make every effort to prevent violent incidents from occurring. All employees, supervisors, and the plan administrator are responsible for implementing the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan. The management of our establishment is responsible for ensuring that all safety and health policies and procedures involving workplace security are implemented and enforced. The plan administrator's roles and responsibilities include, but are not limited to, completing and updating the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, ensuring that the plan is accessible to all ANA Security Group personnel, ensures that procedures are in place to ensure that supervisory and non-supervisory employees comply with the plan, ensures that a thorough workplace violence hazard assessment has been completed, and employees are actively involved in the hazard assessment process, ensures that procedures are in place to correct workplace violence hazards in the facility, ensures that procedures are in place for documenting and communicating workplace violence matters to employees, ensures that employees and supervisors are trained and are actively involved in developing the training as required under the regulation, ensures that employees who fail to comply with the plan are disciplined, ensures that procedures are in place for incident response and investigation. Supervisors must communicate employee safety concerns to the plan administrator, assist with preparation, review, and update of the hazard assessments, implement and enforce applicable provisions of the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan, be ready to diffuse and/or respond to potential workplace violence situations, communicate the occurrence of all workplace violence incidents to the program administrator, assist with the completion of the violent incident log when needed, communicate with the plan administrator regarding employee performance in complying with the Workplace Violence Prevention Plan. Employees must be actively involved in the design, implementation, and periodic revision of this plan. Conduct themselves in a way that will contribute to an environment that is free of violence, intimidation, and threat. Report all incidents of workplace violence to a supervisor or the plan administrator. Take all threats seriously and be ready to defuse and/or respond to potential workplace violence situations. Attend all employee training sessions upon initial employment and as required. Be familiar with all ANA security group policies that may mitigate the potential for workplace violence. Be familiar with ANA security group policies for evacuation and sheltering in place. This plan will be reviewed annually and whenever workplace policies of ANA security group change. Whenever regulations or regulatory agency policies change. After a workplace violence incident, or when it can be demonstrated that the plan is not effective. The plan is located in the office and is accessible to employees and employee representatives at all times. Access to the plan is also available by contacting the plan administrator. What is workplace violence? Any act of violence or threat of violence that occurs in a place of employment that includes, but is not limited to, the following. The threat or use of physical force against an employee that results in, or has a high likelihood of resulting in, injury, psychological trauma, or stress, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. An incident involving a threat or use of a firearm or another dangerous weapon, including the use of common objects as weapons, regardless of whether the employee sustains an injury. What are the workplace violence types? The following 4 workplace violence types. Type 1 violence. Workplace violence committed by a person who has no legitimate business at the worksite and includes violent acts by anyone who enters the workplace or approaches workers with the intent to commit a crime. Type 2 violence. Workplace violence directed at employees by customers, clients, patients, students, inmates, or visitors. Type 3 violence. Workplace violence against an employee by a present or former employee, supervisor, or manager, and Type 4 violence. Workplace violence committed in the workplace by someone who does not work there but has or is known to have had a personal relationship with an employee. Workplace violence does not include lawful acts of self-defense or the defense of others. Examples of workplace violence include verbal threats, aggressive behavior, like pushing or shoving, abusive or offensive language or gestures or other discourteous conduct, disorderly conduct, such as shouting, throwing objects, punching walls, and slamming doors, making false, malicious, or unfounded statements to damage someone's reputation, or bringing weapons into the workplace. There are a number of factors that may impact the likelihood of a workplace violence incident. These include working directly with the public, working alone, working at night, working where alcohol is served, mobile workplaces, working with unstable or violent persons, working in high-crime areas, guarding valuable goods or property, working in community-based settings. There are also factors that increase the severity of a workplace violence incident, including inadequate security systems, such as a lack of door locks, entry codes, or badge readers, security windows, physical barriers, and restraint systems. Unrestricted movement of the public in a facility. Ineffective systems and procedures that warn others of actual or potential workplace violence danger or that summon assistance, such as alarms or panic buttons. Blocked escape routes. No posting of emergency telephone numbers for law enforcement, fire, and medical services. No access to a telephone with an outside line. No designated safe area where employees can go in an emergency. Employees' lack of skill in safely handling threatening or hostile service recipients, and a lack of communication between management and employees. Because of our specific risk factors, we have implemented the following controls, work practices, and procedures to reduce the risk of workplace violence at our facility. Our engineering controls include security cameras, silent alarms, and other security equipment. controlled access to the facility with locked doors and employee badges, and keeping the workplace well lit inside and outside. Our administrative controls include procedures for reporting problem behavior on the part of coworkers, customers, and others, which we will discuss later in this session. Conflict resolution techniques, which we will also discuss later in this session, and a buddy system for specified emergency events. Employee-related violence in the workplace occurs when someone reacts to a trigger in a violent manner. These triggers are often related to something going on in the workplace. Here are some scenarios that may cause an employee to become violent. When a business struggles and needs to lay off employees, those laid off can be angry, and some could react violently. Likewise, employees who are fired for disciplinary or other reasons can also become violent either at the time of firing or later. Current employees who are warned about bad behavior may have a negative and violent reaction. Employees receive a less than satisfactory performance review may take exception in a physical manner, as may some who do not receive a promotion or raise they expected. Conflicts among employees can sometimes escalate into violent behavior. These may be related to the job or personal issues between individuals. Perceived unfairness could also lead to violence in some situations, for example, if one employee was promoted over another who believed they deserved the promotion more. Either the promoted employee or the supervisor who did the promoting could be the target of violence. Personal problems can also lead to violence at work. This can include cases of domestic violence in which an abuser follows the employee to work and commits a violent act. Employees with alcohol or drug problems can cause unsafe working conditions, as well as be more prone to violence. In some cases, untreated mental illness can cause an individual to become violent in the workplace. And employees experiencing financial difficulties, divorce, health issues, or other stressful life events can sometimes react to that stress in a violent manner. Often, violence is the result of several triggers at once. For example, an employee may be under stress at work, as well as at home. However, it's important to remember that most people experiencing stress or conflict at work or in their personal lives do not become violent. That's why it's important to pay attention to a person's behavior, not only to the situations they are experiencing. Violence perpetrated by people who are not employees can have some of the same triggering factors as violence committed by coworkers. In general, stressful and tense situations can be a trigger for violence. For example, a customer or client may react in a violent manner to a dispute. Just like with employees, stress and difficulties in a customer, client, or student's work or personal life can spill over and lead to a violent outburst. Substance abuse and untreated mental illness can also be connected to violence committed by people who are not employees. Violence can also erupt during the course of other crimes, such as robberies or drug dealing, that can occur in parking areas, just outside your facility, or even inside the facility. If your job takes you on the road or to high crime areas, you may be particularly susceptible to these types of incidents. And, unfortunately, workplace violence is sometimes completely random, with no obvious reason or trigger. As an employee, there are security measures you can take to help prevent workplace violence. Report to the proper authority any suspicious individuals or activity you see anywhere inside or outside the workplace. Make sure visitors sign in and are escorted the entire time they're on the premises. Where required identification, wherever appropriate, and require visitors to be properly identified. Lock valuables, such as purses and wallets, in your desk or locker. Report any security breaches, such as signs of a break-in or missing items, and cooperate with the investigation. Use a pre-arranged danger signal to alert someone in your immediate vicinity of imminent danger. Another way to prevent workplace violence and avoid physical harm is by diffusing a potentially violent situation. When you notice any signs of potential workplace violence, you should remain calm and continue to speak in a moderate tone of voice. Show respect to people even when they become upset. Focus on the problem by asking for details about the situation and going over possible solutions. Alert a coworker or colleague with a pre-arranged danger signal if it is believed the person may become violent or the situation generates a sense of fear for personal safety or the safety of others. The coworker or colleague will immediately report to security and/or the police. In the event of a workplace violence incident, you will be alerted to the presence, location, and nature of the workplace violence incident. If you feel uncomfortable initially addressing the potentially violent situation, immediately notify your supervisor. Now, let's discuss how to recognize the 3 levels of violence and how to respond to each level. Level 1, or early warning signs, is when the person is intimidating or bullying, discourteous or disrespectful, uncooperative, verbally abusive. When someone exhibits level 1 behavior, maintain a calm attitude, acknowledge the person's feelings, for example, I know you are frustrated, and avoid acting in a manner that could be interpreted as aggressive, for example, moving quickly, getting too close, or speaking loudly. Always report concerns to your supervisor, and seek the supervisor's help in responding to the situation if needed. Level 2, or when the situation escalates, is when the person argues with customers, vendors, employees, and/or management, refuses to obey company policies and procedures, damages equipment and steals property, verbalizes wishes to hurt employees and/or management, sends a threatening notes to an employees and/or management, and/or sees self as victimized by management. When someone exhibits level 2 behavior, call 911 if warranted, particularly if the situation requires immediate medical and/or law enforcement personnel. If necessary, secure your own safety and the safety of others. Then, contact your supervisor to report the violent behavior. Level 3, or imminent violence, is when the person displays intense anger, resulting in suicidal threats, physical fights, destruction of property, display of extreme rage, use of weapons to harm others. When someone exhibits level 3 behavior, immediately leave the area and call 911. Remain calm and contact your supervisor. Cooperate with law enforcement personnel when they respond to the situation. Active shooter situations are a particular type of workplace violence in which one or more individuals are actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined space or another populated area with the use of firearms. Active shooters may be motivated by many different causes, including anger, revenge, or ideology. In most cases, there is no pattern or method to an active shooter's selection of victims. Active shooter events are unpredictable. They happen quickly, and they escalate quickly. Sometimes, they are over before law enforcement can respond. Knowing how to react to protect your personal safety if you are ever in an active shooter situation can help you survive. Your first course of action should be to escape to safety. Make sure you know your nearest exit routes and how to get out quickly. Don't stop to gather your belongings. Encourage other people to come with you, but if they are reluctant, don't let them stop you from leaving. Once you are in a safe location, call 911. If you can't escape safely, the next best option is to hide. When you choose a hiding place, make sure it is out of the shooter's view. Try to barricade yourself in your hiding place by locking doors, moving furniture, and placing other obstacles between you and the shooter. Close, lock, and move away from windows. Remain quiet and make sure your cell phone is silenced until the danger is gone. As a last resort, you may need to take action if confronted face-to-face with an active shooter. Your goal is to disrupt, distract, or incapacitate the attacker. You can improvise weapons, such as a fire extinguisher, heavy furniture, or anything else you have at your disposal. Commit to stopping the shooter by any means necessary. When law enforcement arrives, their first goal is to stop the shooter. They will not stop to tend to victims until the area is safe. You can help law enforcement people do their job by keeping your hands visible at all times, remaining calm, and following any instructions you are given. Avoid making sudden movements, screaming, or pointing. Employees noticing any signs of potential workplace violence will take immediate steps to defuse the situation or will notify a supervisor. The employee or supervisor will remain calm and continue to speak in a moderate tone of voice. Show respect to people even when they become upset. Focus on the problem by asking for details about the situation and going over possible solutions. Alert a coworker or colleague with a pre-arranged danger signal if it is believed the person may become violent or the situation generates a sense of fear for personal safety or the safety of others. The coworker or colleague will immediately report to security and/or the police. In the event of a workplace violence incident, all employees will be alerted of the presence, location, and nature of the workplace violence incident. Employees will be notified and alerted by any one or a few of these means: alarm, loudspeaker, text message, phone call, email. Under certain circumstances, employees may be directed to either evacuate or shelter in place. Under certain circumstances involving workplace violence, you may be directed to evacuate the facility. If full evacuation of the building becomes necessary, recognize what the evacuation alarm sounds or looks like. Listen to and follow any instructions that are given, whether over a public address system or in person, including which sections of the building may be unsafe to exit through and where the designated meeting area is. Follow the quickest exit route out of the building. Go immediately to the designated meeting area. We will rehearse evacuation drills at least once a year. In other situations, you may be required to stay at work and shelter in place. In that case, locate the emergency kit. Go to the sheltering room and bring the emergency kit with you if it's not already stored there. Shut windows and doors to the sheltering room. After everyone arrives, seal windows, doors, and vents with duct tape in the case of a chemical attack threat. Finally, listen to the radio for news on the situation, further instructions, and the all-clear signal. In the event of a workplace violence incident that results in someone being injured. If you witness an attack resulting in an injury that requires more than first aid, immediately contact emergency services. Injured people will receive prompt and appropriate medical care. They'll be transported to medical care facilities. The incident will be reported to police and other authorities as required by law. The area where the violent actions occurred will be secured to protect evidence and minimize any disturbance during the post-incident response process. An incident investigation will be conducted. Injured people, witnesses to the incident, and other affected employees will be provided psychological assistance and counseling to reduce trauma and stress. We'll discuss more of how to deal with the psychological effects that may occur after a workplace violence incident later in the session. You must report all workplace violence incidents and threats to your supervisor immediately. You can report violent activity without fear of retaliation. We do not discriminate against victims of workplace violence. Your supervisor will inform the plan administrator about the incident or threat. After each workplace violence incident, the plan administrator will investigate the incident using appropriate incident investigation techniques and best practices. The plan administrator will prepare a written evaluation report of the incident and will make recommendations to prevent similar incidents from occurring, including revisions to the plan. The plan administrator will inform all employees of the corrective actions taken as a result of the incident investigation. Results of incident investigations and corrective actions will be communicated to employees by meetings, emails, memos, safety committee, training. As previously mentioned, after an incident of workplace violence, all affected employees will be provided psychological assistance and counseling to reduce trauma and stress. Look for these signs of distress in yourself and your coworkers: withdrawing from work activity or peers or appearing emotionless, frequently calling in sick, overworking, or working slowly, and difficulty concentrating, making decisions, or dealing with change. In addition to counseling, there are other ways to cope with distress and to help others cope. Talk about the incident with coworkers and supervisors. Spend extra time with loved ones. Turn off media coverage about the event and don't read about it. If you have any questions, be sure to bring them up to your supervisor and remember to stay safe out there.